I'll go ahead and get started. I just want to say welcome and also Feliz, Happy Latinx and Hispanic Heritage Month. It's an honor to be with all of you today. We're super excited for this session on digital strategy and public will building. So today's session will focus on how to build collective momentum and how to use digital strategy to increase visibility, which is especially important as we become more virtual over the past year. We're hoping you all will walk away with some great information and tools to utilize in your own work. And we also want to honor that there are some experts in the room that have been doing this work for a very long time. So please feel free to chime in. The chat is always open. And today we are joined by 50+1 and Cognito. I want to take a second to uplift Hannah and Leda's work of Cognito. Cognito Agency has worked with Create California for over 3 years and has led the Public Will campaign for arts education. Cognito now manages all communications for the Merge Create California, designing our beautiful website and creating social media and resource graphics, those toolkits that go out every month, and also setting digital engagement strategy. So briefly, again, my name is Alexia Martin. I am the Arts Now program manager. I will pass it off to Cognito so they can introduce themselves, and then we'll have 50+1 introduce themselves as well.
Hi, everybody. I'm Leda, and I run Cognito, which is a small communications agency. And I've been working on this project for Create California for a few years, and I've been really excited to meet you all so that we can start a movement for arts education. And I'll kick it over to Hannah.
Hi all, I'm Hannah Wolf, she, her, hers, and one of the producers at Cognito. And I have been working with Create California for the past 1.5 years or so, and I'm the face behind all the social media. So if you send us anything, I'm the one liking all of your posts. I'll pass it to 50+1.
Hey everybody, nice to see you again. I'm Amy Wiwuga, met you last time. I'm an associate with 50+1 and just here to encourage your advocacy and make you guys all that much stronger in amplifying the great work you already do. And with that, I'll send it over to Sean.
Hey everyone, my name's Sean. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a digital strategist here at 50+1, but I also moonlight as a public speaking coach at my local high school. So arts education is very near and dear to my heart.
Great, thank y'all so much. So we're gonna move on now to our land acknowledgement. Today I'm coming from Tongva land. So in order to center race and equity in our conversation today and our work to create an inclusive space, it's very important for us to acknowledge and honor the indigenous people who have been on this land and who continue to be on this land. So if you can take a moment, please either text your zip code to the number on the screen, or also we'll drop this link in the chat. And we also have a very handy PDF that you can have for your own convenience that has our full land acknowledgement on it, along with a clickable icon to take you straight to that website. So I ask you to please join in the chat and honor, show gratitude to the land that you are on today. Great, thank you so much. Love seeing all of these acknowledgements come into the chat. It's amazing. So for our meeting agreements, we can take any suggestions to edit, but these are the ones that we created from the first session that we've had together. There is a suggestion that we have is to utilize this ouch, oops, explain concept. I feel like this would be a really great tool for us. So for example, if you possibly say something and you realize maybe that wasn't the right thing to say or it doesn't sit right, you could say, oops. Or let's say someone says something, it doesn't sit right with you. then feel free to use the word ouch. And we can really have some teachable, learnable moments together and address anything that is coming up. And this last part here, the explain part, let's say, for example, we are in conversation, maybe it's moving a little bit fast, or again, something doesn't sit right with you and you need a little bit more of an explanation from where the person may be coming from. So you can simply say, hey, do you mind explaining that? So that's a suggestion. If there's any alterations that we would like to make to these meeting agreements, please unmute yourself now or put it in the chat and I will go ahead and alter them for us. So I'll take maybe a few moments to see if anybody has any alterations, or if you're all good, you can do the thumbs up or whatever emoji of your choice. Great. Okay. See thumbs up. Okay, perfect. So now I will hand it off.
Hi, everybody. Again, hi, it's me. We are so excited about today's agenda. We're going to have a really fun icebreaker, do some introductions. We're going to talk about messaging to build political will. And we're going to move into digital organizing to mobilize. We're going to talk about decision maker outreach, and then we'll go to questions and closings. So super excited for that. And right now, we're going to break you out into breakout rooms. The question is, so when you break out into the breakout room, we're going to give you 5 minutes. Tell the group your name, your location, of course, your pronouns, and then also, if you could only have 3 apps on your phone, which apps would they choose? And then we're excited to get everybody back, and we will do that now. So just give me a quick second to get you all into breakout rooms. It looks like we have some people coming back. So exciting. Room 1 is hopping. They just can't stop talking about their apps. Oh, glad you had fun, Karen. So Karen, can you unmute yourself? Which apps did you pick? And everybody, if you want to share your apps, very curious. Feel free to share them in the chat box, or would love to hear what you guys picked.
Mine were Spotify, podcasts, and Instagram.
Very good one. So many of us were Spotify people. Anyone else? Anyone else want to share what their must-have apps were? Photos. Yes, Connie, photos essential. Well, with that, I am going to pass it over to Cognito. Leda, take it away.
Thanks, Amy. Hey, everybody. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the messaging for Create California. So we've been working really hard for a few years now to figure out what needs to happen in order to get people's attention around this issue. As you know, attention is very valuable and everyone's trying to get our attention. So, figuring out how to get people's attention while we're educating them and inspiring them to become advocates has been and continues to be our mission. We really want to create messaging that will inspire different audiences like students, parents, teachers, to become advocates and to want to take action for this, because we're trying to start a movement. We're trying to make the point that we want people to add this issue to the list of things that they're already fighting for, which is pretty challenging considering what people are facing these days, but we believe we can do it. And here at Cognito, we have a background in advertising and communications and entertainment industry, where they really know the value of a well-crafted story, high production value. So we've been working really hard to elevate the brand of Create California and come up with various ways to talk about the most important points about this issue. We're trying to really make graphics and videos that people are going to watch all the way through and want to share. And I think we've done a pretty good job, but we really need people like you to join us, to bring in more people, to really explain to people like why this matters and why they should join us. So you may or may not know that, successful public will campaigns, they kind of come up with like a few drumbeat messages, and then they say them over and over, and they get lots of people to say the same thing over and over again. There's a very famous public will campaign called the Truth Campaign that was against tobacco. And that's what they did. They came up with like messaging that they thought was catchy, and then they said it over and over again. We don't have that same budget, but we have you. So the on-the-ground organizers are really crucial to this campaign. And it's really crucial that we come together and say the same things over and over again, and get other people to say the same things. So we are relying on folks like you to help us spread the word and really try to get this messaging to stick. So I wanted to play the video now so that you can see kind of like, if you watch this video, it's really kind of an outline of what our main drum beats are and the messages that we think need to be said over and over again in order to get people to understand why this issue matters and want to join us. Are we able to play the video?
Did you know California's education code mandates all schools offer classes in dance, music, theater, and visual arts? Even before the current crisis, only 12% of middle and high schools met that mandate. Students are not getting what they need and deserve. Those who are low income and of color face the greatest barriers to a full and relevant arts education. This is an equity issue. As students face uncertainty and distance learning, arts education is more essential to their success and well-being than ever. Students with an arts education are 5 times more likely to stay in school, 3 times more likely to get a bachelor's degree, and 4 times more likely to be recognized for academic achievement. And arts education matters outside the classroom too. In 2019, California's creative economy generated 2.7 million jobs, and creativity is the skill most sought after by employers. As we rebuild our state's economy, we need innovative students ready and able to fill the jobs of the future. This moment requires that students' mental health and well-being be at the forefront of our decisions. Studies show arts education helps students heal from trauma and build resilience. It's not just nice to have. It's not optional. It's essential. As budget cuts loom, we cannot afford to disproportionately cut the arts. Sign the pledge and commit to fight for every student's right to receive an arts education at createca.org. Did you know California's...
We're going to play it again. So we made that video with the hope that people will like it, watch the whole thing and share it. So we're hoping that you will do that and help us get more people to do that. And it really does kind of outline what our main drum beats are, which we're going to go over now. Starting with, I can't see where you are, Amy, on your slides at the same time because I've got my different screen up.
No worries. We're starting with the problem in facts and then socio-emotional learning.
Perfect. So one of our main drumbeat buckets is what's the problem and what are the facts? So we want to educate people around this. The main problem is that the education code says that every student K through 12 will receive dance, music, theater, visual arts, and media arts every year, all year, but only 12% of the schools in California are doing that. Usually when we say that, people are like, what? They had no idea. So we really want to play on that outrage that comes up when people learn that here we are, the creative economy of the world, and people, schools are not adhering to the ed code when we are clearly supposed to be. So we really also look for data to support those kinds of outrageous things so that we can inspire people with facts. So that's one of our drum beats, and we make a lot of graphics that explain the problem and present data, and we're hopefully in interesting ways. And then the next drumbeat that we often talk about is social emotional learning, which I'm going to let Hannah talk about.
Thanks, Leda. And just so everyone knows, you are going to very soon get a Google Drive with images with all of these data points and graphics in them. So you don't have to worry about like taking notes about all of the percentages and facts that we're throwing at you right now. So one of our other drum beats is social emotional learning. And because we're in this room, we know that the arts are a pathway towards social emotional learning, and the arts should be used as a strategy in schools' SEL plans. Arts education has been shown to improve social connections through sharing and cooperation, and lead students and teachers to reduced anxiety and shyness. One of the many issues is that schools don't always recognize that the arts can be one of the tools in their social emotional learning plans. And I know that we're all hearing that term being used quite a bit these days, but one of our current call to actions is to actually let schools know that the arts are a strategy that they can hold on to. So just some of the data that's come out recently about student morale and teacher morale is that these days, 42% of teachers say that the pandemic has made them feel less motivated at work. 90% of school districts have cited higher rates of absenteeism or disengagement over the past year. And over 50% of students say that they're in need of mental health support, which is an increase of 30% since the pandemic began. And arts education is a very helpful tool for all three of these issues: for school engagement, for attendance, and for mental health and well-being. So there's two messages that we're focusing on when we talk about social emotional learning. The first is the internal or the personal message. This is something similar to the arts help students process and heal from trauma, as well as build their voice and a sense of agency, which we all know is really important right now as students are returning to in-person learning. And then there's also the external or the global message, which is that arts education improves student, parent, and teacher engagement, which in turn affects community and also civic engagement. So one of those things, a data point to put in there for you all is that students with high participation in the arts are more likely to volunteer in their communities and vote in local elections. What you are going to get today, which is hot off the presses, is a fancy flyer. You all are the first people to get it, which has a lot of these data points in it and some of the talking points that we've been using around social emotional learning. And now I am going to throw it to Leda on the next slide for economy and careers.
Yeah, so the third kind of bucket of drumbeat that we like to talk about a lot is the relationship between arts education and the economy and careers. A lot of parents think that, you know, if my kid takes art classes, they're going to end up being a fine artist, and we don't want that. Which we think is cool to be a fine artist, but we understand that a lot of folks are like, why would I want them to take art classes when I want them to be professional? So we're really trying to educate parents and show them the data that proves that having a relevant and consistent arts education leads to more success in any career that you choose. Not only that, but as I was mentioning before, you know, California is a massive creative economy. We contributed $174 billion to the state's economy last year, which is nearly double that of agriculture and triple that budget of construction. So we just have a huge creative economy here in California. 1 in 10 workers in this state are in the creative industry, but students in other states are getting a better creative education than the students here in California. So those students from other states are being prepared to come take these creative jobs in California, and our students are not being prepared for that. The other thing is that, we already said that. The other thing is that creativity is like the #1 thing that employers are looking for. So, you know, we really want to stress that if your student is taking art classes, it means they're going to have a much better shot at having a successful professional career in any industry that they choose. I think that covers it on economy and careers. And then the next drumbeat is academic achievement. Hannah.
Yeah, thank you. So fun fact, arts education also improves academics. So this is actually the area that we have some of the most data in. And so you will see these numbers quite a bit when you are looking at our images and our Instagram and things on our website. But arts education has been proven to increase graduation rates in both high school and college. Students who have high participation in the arts are 4 times more likely to be recognized for academic achievement. They are 3 times more likely to be elected for a class office. They are 10% more likely to complete a high school calculus course, and they are 3 times more likely to win an award for school achievement. And if you are poking around the Google Drive that Jessica posted, you'll see these under the academic achievement folder. And then I'm going to pass it to Leda for equity.
So equity is another one of our drumbeats that we are looking for ways to connect arts education to issues of equity in our messaging over and over again, because it's a huge equity issue. I'm sure most of you know, but some of you might not know that since the passage of Prop 13 in 1978, California school funding has been less equitable based on zip code. So even though there's been like recent attempts to change the legislation, that hasn't happened. And as long as arts education is considered to be special and not critical for every student, it follows the pattern that students who have a lower socioeconomic status, and especially BIPOC students, don't have access to the same amount of arts education as others. So the reality is that the students who could benefit the most from arts education are least likely to be receiving it. We have a bunch of data points around that, which you'll also see if you're poking around in the Google Drive. So yeah, I encourage you to look at those. I'm not going to read off the stats because I think we're at time, but I wanted to make sure that you know that, you know, this is just a huge equity issue in California, and we really want to raise that right now and make sure that people know that it's not fair what's happening and we need to change it. I think that covers our drumbeats. So is that it on drumbeats? Anything else? You have the link so you can look around in there.
Yeah, I would just add that, you know, I know that last week you all were starting to create your own art stories and like your story about the why you're in this fight. And we encourage you to, we're going to be working on this a little bit now, but pick the drum beats that work for you. You don't need to take all of them. Like find the things that contribute to your why. And that will, if you add this data in with your personal story, it's just going to help amplify your message.
And I just want to lift up a question. Thanks, Allison. Do the drumbeats, oh, there goes, do the drumbeats have the data sources to provide additional credibility to our audiences?
Yes. So I'm going to drop in the chat. On our new website, we have a citation page that has all of the data, all of the research studies that we have used to pull this data. So you can look through that to find what studies we've been using. And I'll put that in the chat right now.
Cool. So building off what Hannah was saying about thinking about your why, is we want to turn our attention now to thinking about who is your audience, and who's in your network, and who are your allies. So we do a lot of thinking about this. You know, people say if you're talking to everybody, you're talking to no one. And it can be really challenging to like focus in on like, who is my audience and what are they interested in? So we've broken down our audience for our messaging for Create California into parents, students, teachers, decision makers, and artists/community members. The decision makers are administrators, school board members, and policymakers. So as we're crafting our drumbeat messaging, we have in mind those audiences. So we might say the same thing, but differently, like a different way towards students than we might want to say it towards parents. So we'd love for you to take a minute and jot down and think about who you want to focus on, like who's in your network, who do you feel like you want to bring into this movement? And the more specific you are, the better. We know it can be really hard because it feels like everybody needs to know this, but think about like who's in your network, who follows you on social media, who's in your neighborhood, who do you talk to and hang out with, and who do you think you can reach to bring in and educate and inspire to be part of this. So as you're thinking about your audience, you can also think back on like those drumbeat categories or look through that Google Drive and like think about which drumbeat might work for which audience that you're thinking about. And we especially want to be, focusing on the ones that we've outlined here, parents and students, teachers, decision makers, but really what I'm excited about mostly with you is like, how do we get parents and students to put pressure on the decision makers that they have access to, like principals, teachers, administrators, school board members, etc.
Hi, everybody. It's me again. Going to move you guys into breakout room and just, talk, have conversations with each other, talk about who your audience focus might be and what drumbeat that you might use and why that drumbeat's important to you or maybe why it relates to your personal mission. So with that, I'm going to send you guys all back into the rooms. Enjoy. And do we have everyone back?
Our person got cut off mid-sentence. Sorry.
That always happens with my breakout rooms. Like it's always when everyone gets passionate and then it shuts down.
Yes. Well, all the buckets are important. We got to that point at least.
Well, do you want to share what you were going to say, or do you want to share anything about what your group had to say?
Well, we didn't get through everybody, but they're also interconnected. Even though I was focusing on equity in our area, we're talking about focus on the statistics for school leaders. You need all the pieces working together. Can't really just use one of the buckets, but we're talking about how different ones we use for different audiences. But anyway, enough from me.
Does anyone else want to share? Feel free to unmute yourself. Tell us what your group talked about or what stood out to you, or also feel free to use the chat box and I can read them.
We're focusing on school board members. We have 13 districts in our county, ranging from 70,000 students to 5,000. So it's not one size fits all, but really looking at those individual members and finding a champion on the board for each one of those, so that we're not trying to like cultivate relationships with all 7 or 8 of them, but at least have one champion that we can really build a relationship with.
That's awesome, Allison. Thanks so much for sharing. Anyone else?
So we talked about the business community and new businesses coming in to our regions, also nonprofit groups, to make them aware of what we're working with. But something that comes to mind, and is something specifically that we're working in Hayward, and is to work with elected officials. So they understand what we're working on, and also to follow us around and also help us with decision making. So we've been working really hard on that.
That's so important. And that's actually, that ties in last time around, on our last training, a student mentioned art art brings businesses to cities, so that definitely builds off some of last session's comments. Anybody else dying to share? Otherwise, and thank you, Wenda. We will.
Oh, I think Kristen had her hand up.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, but just quickly, I shared in our group that an interesting silver lining happened for us during COVID, where we were online so much more, streaming things, certainly delivering virtual programs in schools, that our audience grew substantially. Our online audience grew substantially. And so while we're still navigating maybe different messages for the different audiences, our advocates around and teachers and parents specifically really grew throughout the pandemic, coupled with then our audience of teachers and site-specific principals and leadership growing as well. So we're using slightly different tactics to reach both of them, but we are happy to see that we have more folks to be talking to at the moment because of COVID.
That's awesome. Yes, COVID made things so much more inclusive with how everyone just kind of jumped on and learned how to use all the meeting features and things to connect. Anyone else want to share? Those were such good points.
I think for me, I just want to add like that our communities might have their own drum beat that's different from our own personal preference. So I think it's very important to make sure that we ask the parents, ask the teachers, and ask the students, like, what is their passion and drum beat that we can help support.
Is it Ariana or Ariana?
Ariana.
That is such a good point. And that's something that we're going to go into in the next session, coalition building. But yes, you definitely want to make sure that you are inclusive of your audience's preferences, cultures, education issues, or what they're passionate about. Because ultimately we want to, build a coalition and bring people in. So you are prepping everyone for the next session. Thank you so much. Anyone else? Okay, with that, we're gonna give you guys a 2-minute mindfulness break. So feel free to get a drink of water, use the restroom, whatever you need to do. We will be back in 2 minutes. So now we're gonna talk about a little bit about digital strategy. I'm gonna start off, and then my colleague Sean will add anything and take you through the rest of the digital strategy section. But wanted to talk about engagement and how you start off engaging with, the folks that you're trying to build the coalition with. So we have a ladder of engagement where it kind of has folks start out with, simpler tasks, and then it moves up to, the little bit more ambitious ones. And it's designed to deepen the engagement among your coalitions that you're building and give advocates easy ways to engage with the movement. So what I love about this is, we're all here and we're all passionate, and so we're ready to take action, but that's not always super easy for people. That's not, some folks aren't always, some people get really intimidated about advocating for something because they want to know all the facts and they want to make sure they don't sound stupid, and so they might be slow to get involved. So just all the different reasons that might hold people back. This is kind of a great system to get them off into the advocacy world. So starting with easier actions, and we call this going from speaking up to stepping up. Follow on social media, and then folks kind of get an idea of, like, they get to see the different social posts of Create California, and maybe even posts you share, and they get a feel for the movement. Then maybe they'll start sharing the movement themselves. They'll start sharing posts, and anytime the most important part of the ladder of engagement, as far as you're concerned, cheer people on, acknowledge them, make sure they know you're seeing them do this, because that's just going to be motivation for them to keep going. Taking the pledge. These are all different Create California actions that you can take. And we'll definitely make sure you have links to all of these. Then once they take the pledge, then they can move into contacting leaders using the tool. So that's still a very like easy way, something you can do from your home. But then maybe we'll get them to go to a virtual training like this. And from there, school board meetings. So we're getting more into like the deeper, harder things. And then, you know, participating in this in the LCAP and the LCFF process, you know, just is what we would love to get everyone to. But just know wherever people land on this ladder, again, be proud that they're even, you know, starting being part of our movement. So yeah, so this is the ladder of engagement. And you know what, some people might be rearing to go and they're ready to start in on, hey, I want to attend a virtual meeting, or I'll cheer you on in a school board meeting. So just know it's like people can come in at different levels. But yeah, so again, one of the most important things is encourage them, you know, acknowledge them anytime, and just show gratitude. Because I think also that'll help them keep going. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sean.
Sweet. Thanks so much, Amy. All right, so we have moved our supporters up the ladder of engagement. We've recruited 10, 15 community members who are really, really passionate about our issue. We've already done the hard work there, which is mobilizing a group of people to join you. The icing on the cake there, though, is going to be actually persuading your decision makers, whether they're school board members or administrators, to act in the way that we want them to act. And so that's the goal of this slide, is to talk a little bit more about the persuasion aspect of digital organizing. Now, ultimately, persuasion takes different forms depending on which type of person you want to talk to. In our case, we're talking to school boards who are elected officials. Elected officials, in general, tend to be really receptive to their constituents, and they try to have presences online all over the internet. So the goal here for you should be to identify who your decision makers are, figure out where they spend their time on the internet, and then figure out how you can get your content, your drum beats, in front of those decision makers. So, for example, it's really clear sometimes when an elected official spends way too much time on Twitter. And if you know for a fact that your school board member is constantly tweeting, you might want to think about tailoring your advocacy to take place on Twitter. You might want to think about tweeting at the reporters or the local content accounts that that elected official follows. Ultimately, by trying to build a power map of the different people, places, and things that hold an elected official or a school board member's interest, you're able to sneak your advocacy in front of the people who need to hear what you have to say. Sorry, my throat's a little bit sore, so I'm gonna grab a little sip of water. But ultimately, you have to be meeting these elected officials where they are. And so you're gonna find that a lot of school board members don't have a Twitter account, or they don't spend any time on Facebook. And so while those platforms are still really valuable for you to mobilize and recruit supporters, they're not gonna be where you want to conduct your persuasion exercises. Ultimately, your persuasion tactics have to be tailored for the people making the decisions. And that's why it's really important that we be deliberate in figuring out how we want to make our case and where it is that we want to be making our case. Yeah, I think if we want to move on to the next slide, we should have a nice little activity in store. All right, so this is my favorite part of the training, but I would love if everyone can either get out their phone or on their computer. I'd like you to navigate to Create California social media accounts. It can be on Facebook, it can be on Instagram. And I want you to take a look at the different content that Create California has already produced and put out into the world. And I want you to think through specifically how that content or how those assets can help you either mobilize or persuade people. How can I use this image, use this video to move someone up the ladder of engagement? Or how can I show this video to an elected official and persuade them that our case is important? I think, thank you, someone's putting the links there in the chat. But let's all go ahead and just take 2 minutes right now, scroll through their social media accounts, and I want everyone to just find one piece of content that you really like, that breaks through the noise for you.
And if you're feeling crazy, hey, why don't you follow, add, all the things.
Okay, awesome. Let's look through some of these. Michelle, I'm going to open your link first because it's first in the chat. Oh yeah, this is lovely. This is, I don't know if I should be sharing my screen here or if people want to just click through that link in the chat. But this is a Facebook post from Create CA that's highlighting 4 new members of the Arts Education Activism cohort. What I absolutely love about this is you have these wonderful faces that are smiling. Okay, great. Yeah, that's going to be better than me just describing it. I really like this content because it shows the people who are involved doing the work. It's inviting, it's vibrant, it gets people excited, and honestly, it's a great recruitment tool to show that there are people doing this work, they're having fun doing it, and it encourages others to get involved and to join the the organization. Fantastic. Any other comments or thoughts on this artwork, this post, why people like it? Feel free to either put that in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, that's also fine. Okay, let me look at one more and then we can get on to the next slide. I'm going to open up Debbie's link on Instagram. Oh, Debbie, that's fantastic. This was one of the other ones that I really wanted to highlight. I really, really like this one. For me, this is a fantastic piece of creative. It really cuts through the noise. And I think it shows people that there's a place for everyone. Oh, this is also a great one. Okay. This is a really cool piece.
That's actually the one that Debbie picked. I picked somebody
Okay,
else.
that was what I thought as well.
But they're
yeah.
all so awesome.
They are all great. So in my mind, this is a great piece both for mobilization and persuasion. It'll grab someone's attention. It has a very clear call to action in the caption. And when you see this image, you're left with the question of, okay, if bubbling in isn't enough art, what is enough art? And that drives people not only to seek out more information, but also if it's a decision maker, then there's a clear call to action there. All right, so this is probably the second most important slide that I'll be talking about today. And we're talking about the different platforms that we can use to engage audiences. Now, I absolutely love the comment that we had earlier about how we need to tailor our messages to the different audiences that we speak to, because a student is going to receive information very differently than a school administrator, and a school administrator is going to approach the situation differently from a parent. And so ultimately, the lesson of all of these different social platforms is not going to be, oh, you should use Twitter for X, Y, and Z, and you should use Instagram for A, B, and C, and you should use Facebook for this particular niche content. Ultimately, each one of you is going to have to determine which social platforms best meets your needs and is going to be the best platform for you to reach your audience. There's a pretty common term in digital organizing, which is that we need to meet people where they are. And when we think through the pros and cons of each of these different social media platforms, that has to be the driving decision is, does your audience use this piece of social media? And if so, are you going to be able to reach them? So let's talk through a little bit about each of these platforms individually. And while I'm doing that, I would love it if people can just type in the chat what your impressions are of this platform. So for example, Twitter is a fantastic platform if you want to reach a really wide audience of people. It's got a very low bar to engagement. It's really easy to retweet someone or to send off a tweet. It only takes 280 characters. But at the same time, Twitter is not a space that's designed to foster really close, tight-knit communities. You're just as likely to see a tweet from someone across the country as you are someone who lives next door to you. We really like Twitter. It's a great forum for us to get attention, especially from elected officials who are known to scroll on Twitter. But at the same time, it doesn't give us a lot of depth through which we can build relationships and mobilize activists. Twitter feels like a megaphone. That's a really great way to put it. It's really easy for you to put out a tweet and ask all of your supporters to retweet you. Ultimately, it's a really low barrier to engagement. It's a great way to get someone on that bottom rung of the ladder of engagement and get them a little bit more involved in the process. But it's not going to be where a lot of our long-term organizing and power building is going to take place. Next, we have Instagram, which I spend way too much time on. I actually had to install a time limit on my phone because I would stay up late just scrolling on Instagram. I absolutely love Instagram because it is a community-oriented tool. You're able to share widely and gain a lot of impressions the same way you could on Twitter, but ultimately the people who see what you post are going to be people that you have already cultivated a connection with. A really good example of Twitter organizing is if you think back to the summer of 2020, Black Lives Matter and the protests about the injustice of George Floyd's murder. People used Instagram to spread this really, really compelling and powerful imagery that ultimately, spread beyond individual friend groups. You couldn't go on Instagram without seeing this really powerful creative put out by an organization of people. And so in my mind, Instagram is a visual medium. It's got a strong emphasis on storytelling and inspiration, but it's also a little bit more community-based. And so you're able to build relationships with the people that you're organizing with. I think Facebook is the best example, though, of an area where you can really build a tight-knit community. I don't know if any of you have been involved in Facebook groups before, but they're a great way through which you can just have a social space for you and other like-minded activists to chat, socialize, strategize, share news articles, share advocacy actions. Ultimately, you're not going to get an elected official's attention on Facebook by tagging them in posts. That's not how Facebook's algorithm will serve people content anymore. But what you can do is build up a community on Facebook and encourage your supporters to find a home and build in that really tight-knit sense of a community of people all fighting for the same change. TikTok, I'm sure everyone has a hot take about TikTok. I would love if you put them in the chat. TikTok is a little bit similar to Twitter in that it is really easy for you to spread a message and have it shared widely. If you have really fun, creative, authentic content, TikTok can be a great place for you to break through the noise and bring new people into the fold. But it also suffers from some of the drawbacks of Twitter, which is that you can't have a really close, tight-knit community on TikTok. Once you put your video up there, it's up to TikTok to determine who does and doesn't see that video. Ultimately, if you are trying to create a TikTok campaign, you should make sure that your videos have an advocacy ask. You could probably show off student artwork as a really good path to get people invested in the issue. And you can express your passion for the project because users on TikTok absolutely love authenticity of someone who really believes in what they're talking about. The one other benefit of TikTok is that you can create a video for TikTok and then share it on other platforms. So if you're inspired, you've got a dance that you want to do to promote arts education, you can create that video, put it on TikTok, and then share it with your friends on Facebook, post it on Instagram as your story, and tweet it out. So TikTok, pros and cons, and just to reiterate what I said earlier, you have to meet your audience where they are. You're probably not going to see a ton of school board members on TikTok. But if your goal is to recruit students and get them passionate about arts education, TikTok can be a fantastic place to meet young people and get them involved. On the flip side, you're much more likely to encounter a school board official on LinkedIn than you are going to be many of the high school and younger students. LinkedIn can be a great platform to reach decision makers, but ultimately it's kind of on its own in terms of it's not a place where people go to socialize, hang out, communicate with other like-minded individuals, but it is a place where many people are having professional conversations about arts education, about education funding, and about education administration. So LinkedIn, in my mind, would be a great place for you to do the persuasion ask to show the school board officials how many people support your cause and how important it is that the school board thinks the same way that you do. But it's not going to be a great place for you to recruit new supporters and move them up the ladder of engagement. And then the last thing from me here is, and I really love this school bus because it's a great reminder that you can also organize in life, in real life away from a computer. In fact, it's one of the best places for you to have face-to-face conversations that get people energized about the issue. And then once you've had an in-person conversation, once you've given someone that flyer, it's much easier to connect with them online, get them added into a Facebook group, connect with them on Instagram so that they can keep working, keep mobilizing, and keep persuading. All right, I'm a little tired from talking so much. I hope you guys aren't tired of my voice just yet, but I am going to turn it over to Cognito to talk through some of the amazing resources that Create California has put together.
Thank you, Sean. We also do have a club on Clubhouse. We're not very active there, but we have been active in the past, and we did have a lot of people showing, really like 300 people in our clubs and people from all over the world who are very passionate about this. So we're hoping to be able to continue that. If any of you are on Clubhouse, I don't recommend it. It's hard to get off once you get on, but it's another place to organize. So we wanted to show you our website, which you can think of as a place to engage people in the ladder of engagement. Are you guys seeing this? Are we good? Okay.
Yep, we can see
so
it.
Hannah's going to navigate while I kind of walk you through our website. So on the homepage is that video that I played for you, or that we played for you earlier. So you can always go there if you want to show somebody. In our Get Info section, you can see our, you know how we've been talking about data points? Well, in the facts area is a place where you can go if you want to like get some data points, just like the basic facts. And it's also where you can like see a bunch of our graphics that we've created around those data points. You can grab those, you can post them. We also have the data project on here, which if none of you know about it, it's a really amazing tool to zone in and find out like exactly what's going on in your school or in your district. It's actually pretty easy to use. We do have a how-to video up there that kind of walks you through it. So if you do want to like look up specifics about the data in your area, that's where you go. That's the video right there that we made. So you can always look at that if you want a little tutorial. We have a little blurb about social emotional learning here, a section about social emotional learning. So you can take a look at that. We also have a video there. If you know people who you want to explain to them why arts education and social emotional learning are so important and how they're related, you can use this video. That's Maceo Paisley. He's an ambassador for the campaign. I think we're just gonna, okay, yeah, we can go here. This is a sign up page. So if you do find people that you want to join our movement, have them sign up here and they'll be added to our email list. And they can use this pull down menu to identify if they're a student, a parent, teacher, community member, ally. So that's the way that we are dividing it up there. So please, you know, get people to sign up. What do we have next under Get Info? Oh, okay, we'll move on to Speak Up. So the next two sections are Speak Up and Step Up, which you heard before, which is some language that we're using around the ladder of engagement. So Speak Up has 3 things under it that we think are really easy to do. So you can click on Speak Up and here's our landing page for Speak Up. And the 3 things are take the pledge, share our graphics, contact your school leaders. These are all things that we think are pretty easy to do, you know, join our social. The school leader tool, which I want to look at right away because I'm very excited about it, is a tool that we created so that people can put their zip code in and then find out who their school board members are and contact them. We are working on finding school board members' Twitter handles. It's a very tedious process, but we are doing that ongoing. We're really excited about this tool. It's the first of its kind. We believe that public servants should be reachable in order for our democracy to work properly. So we want to encourage people to contact their leaders by using this tool. I guess we should go back and look at the pledge. The pledge is another way. If somebody only has a few minutes, they can just take the pledge, let them know that they care. It's actually another way to sign up for a newsletter. But, you know, this is another easy thing you can get people to do. And then the next section on our website is called Step Up. And these are the things that are a little bit harder to do. So you can scroll around through here. This is where we'd explain deeper ways that people can get involved by, you know, joining a virtual training that we're going to be having, joining an Arts Now community if you know somebody who wants to start one or join one, reading the declaration, downloading the Declaration of Students' Rights. You can download that. Finding out more about Title I arts. This is where stuff gets a little bit more like time intensive, but we encourage you all, since you guys are devoted advocates already, to get to know this section of the site and give us feedback too, if you see anything here. So again, like we kind of divided it up between speak up and step up, and the speak up stuff is really easy to do. So that's where we're going to be focusing first. And then hopefully as people get more and more engaged, we'll be able to engage them in these things that are these ways of taking action that take a little bit more time and energy. We also have a donate page here, and it's something that we're working on a strategy for how we're going to start getting donations more. But we do have this donation page, which is another way that people can get involved. If they're too busy to actually do anything, they can just give us money so we can do more organizing. Did I miss anything resource-wise that we want to make sure people see? Our website's full of resources. We encourage you to explore it, spend some time with it, have some coffee, check it out. There's a lot of stuff in there. What's next on our thing? Is that it?
I think we are now going into the thank you section, but I want to take a moment to see if there's any questions that anybody has. So we can answer those for you right now. So please feel free to unmute yourself or, drop that question in the chat. I'll give you all a moment. Think if there's anything brewing in your mind. If not, you can always email me or Adelaide, and we will also try to answer your questions that way.
We gave you guys a ton of information on the social platforms. Does anybody have any burning questions about TikTok or Instagram or Twitter or all the places? Anything we can demystify for you?
Grammarly can help you write quickly and confidently, so you never have to slow down.
I use Grammarly. You guys should check it out. All the Oxford commas. Any question? No one? No burning questions?
I just wanted to say.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Sorry,
Go.
Amy. I just want to thank Lita for taking time to describe the Create California progression, because I'm on there all the time, and just to see that especially the page, it's really thoughtfully laid out in terms of progression of activism. So I appreciate having some time to understand that.
Great, thank you. I think there's one question here from Judy that says, is there a difference between Facebook groups and a Facebook page?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that if that's all right. It's a fantastic question. There are a lot of differences. A Facebook page is closer to an individual user's account in that you would be representing an organization or an entity. People would be able to come and like your page, and then they would see your updates in their feed. Whereas a Google group is a space for individual, or Facebook group, pardon me, is a space for individual Facebook users to come together and comment, post amongst themselves. My strong recommendation would be that you're better off setting up a Facebook group rather than a Facebook page for a couple of different reasons. The first is Facebook keeps changing their algorithm, which determines what content people see when they log on to Facebook. And Facebook has intentionally made it harder for pages to communicate with people who follow or like them. Facebook's filter tries to filter out issues that are political or about social issues. And oftentimes they consider things like arts education or any sort of political advocacy. And so they'll keep those away from their users as much as possible. And then the second reason why I would really recommend a Facebook group is that it gives users and your supporters opportunities to interact and move up the ladder of engagement. So it would be giving people like me or people like you an opportunity and a space to talk amongst themselves, share their passions, and then share and formulate strategies that are specific to your community. And it's a lot harder to have those conversations take place on a Facebook page. Does that kind of answer your question?
And just to build on what Sean said, we do a 50+1, we do a lot of advocacy work, and Facebook groups are a wonderful, wonderful tool for advocacy, similar to how if you guys are going to start a group, similar to how we talked with the meeting agenda and the meeting norms at the beginning, you want to do that for Facebook too. So just so it stays, if you do a group, it's a private group, so just so it stays a very productive and safe space for folks. But that is where you guys can come together and collaborate and have all your different ideas and schedule events, like everybody's just in one place and share great content, and that might be, hey guys, we finally got a meeting with the school board. Let's, who's in, or, oh, Create California just did this awesome tweet. We need more people to retweet it. So you can do all kinds of things in a Facebook group. But yeah, just look at some of the best practices, about maintaining a good group environment. But yeah, I'm in so many different Facebook groups, and you build camaraderie and you keep each other motivated. So yeah. Any other questions? Thanks, Judy. That was a great question. So with that, I think, Adelaide, do you want to tell people about the next training?
I can go ahead and do that. So next week, same time, same place, virtually, we will have another training from 3:30 to 5 p.m. for building an equitable, inclusive coalition. So very excited to have y'all on that one. It's really crucial and important. And again, thank you so much for your presence and your time and your engagement. We really appreciate it. And we're just all very excited and thankful for your engagement and being a part of this program.